Hey guys, LevelCap here, and today in gaming, Battlefield 2042's most controversial feature may have already been nerfed. Id could be making a new Quake game, New World has a dangerous exploit, and much more. Nvidia released their big Battlefield 2042 PC features trailer, and it gives us quite a bit of new info. At launch, 2042 will offer Nvidia's DLSS upscaling, reflex low latency modes, and ray-traced ambient occlusion. And while some players might be disappointed that 2042 won't utilize more advanced ray tracing options like reflections or global illumination, it makes sense that a multiplayer title wouldn't offer a wildly different visual presentation for some players with select hardware. The side-by-side comparison doesn't show a dramatic difference, but the closer that you look, the more obvious the improvements of ray tracing become. Subtle stuff like proper shading on the underside of this crane helps with immersion, even if it doesn't look revolutionary. And with regards to implementing ray-traced reflections into a highly intensive multiplayer game, sure, it's cool to say that you can do it, but usually the FPS hit is so extreme that I would wager 99.9999% of players wouldn't use it in favor of just getting higher frame rate. Now, despite these cool Nvidia tech announcements, they're actually secondary to a much more important reveal. Specialist Jisoo Park's Wallhack scanner doesn't actually look as powerful as her initial reveal. It scans in pulses, and enemies only seem to be highlighted when you're aiming down sights. The highlight is also tied to the pulses rather than persisting through the entire duration of the scan. It's unclear if this represents tweaks made to her ability since the previous footage was released, or if it's just from a more recent build of the game. Heck, it's tough to tell if this is even different behavior from the initial reveal. It just shows things more clearly. Either way, it just doesn't look anywhere near as powerful as it was before, and I can't say that I'm eager to use her as a character over some of the other specialists in the game. Now, before we get to the rest of today's Battlefield news, just a heads up that Amazon is selling the Logitech G432 wired gaming headset for half off today. This is just $40 for a pretty darn good headset that works with PCs and consoles. Check it out via our affiliate link in the description to help out the channel. Now, in slightly less positive Battlefield 2042 news, current gen console players will not be getting 120 FPS support at launch. It's also unlikely that DICE will be able to add it post-launch. A developer at the studio says it's something that they're exploring, but the CPUs in the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series consoles are the limiting factor. As is with 128 players, they're already hammering the CPUs. Achieving 120 FPS isn't a matter of just turning down the resolution or reducing graphical features in CPU-limited situations. Heck, it's going to be hard for a lot of PC players to hit 120 FPS. Things like animation rate or character models, physics interactions, and other vital elements of the multiplayer experience would have to be sacrificed to achieve a higher frame rate. And while it is disappointing for sure that cutting-edge console hardware can't quite pull off what some high-end PCs can do, well, they're still only a fraction of the price by comparison. Now, tech features aside, the new trailers also give us a look at some new content. The Mare's Leg lever action rifle from Battlefield 4 is returning. One of the shots on Orbital shows two tornadoes on the map at once, and there's some additional footage of tank gameplay on the Renewal map. The official Battlefield Twitter account is also posting clips with extended looks at previously revealed maps. The extra shots seem like they might be taken from the game's loading screens when loading into that map. id Software might be developing a new Quake title. They're hiring for a long-running iconic action FPS title currently in development, and Quake is one of the most obvious candidates. Machine Games have been making the Wolfenstein games, and Dune Eternal is still hot off the presses, so it's unlikely that a sequel is even beyond the concept phase right now. So the job listing also hints at sci-fi and fantasy elements, which Quake is well regarded for blending those together. Id recently remastered Quake 1 as well, so there's a good chance it's a Quake game. A bug with MMO New World let players run their own code in the game's chat box. The potential impact of this bug was pretty severe. Players could load images found in the game's install directory, but they used the code to load an asset that doesn't exist, and it crashed the game client of anyone who hovered over the malicious message. Considering that you can send chat messages to hundreds if not thousands of players at once via general or all chats, the bug is a pretty big deal. Fortunately, Amazon fixed the bug in a matter of of hours. As for New World's monumental success, it seems like its concurrent player count is finally starting to normalize. On launch, New World shot up to nearly 1 million concurrent players, but that number has been falling by roughly 150,000 players per week. It's currently hovering at around 500,000 players, which is still pretty incredible. Of course, the real question is, where will it end up in a few weeks or months from now? A big test of an MMO is its ability to keep players invested and attract a new audience with content updates. We'll have to see how New World stacks up with past successes like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV. I think most players, though, would agree that the foundation is solid, so if Amazon can keep up with adding new content and features, it should hopefully keep the player base on board. Roblox, one of the biggest games in the world right now, was offline for 3 days straight. The developers finally started bringing the game back online yesterday. They haven't fully explained why the outage happened, but it took the game offline for its average 40 million daily users, which is absolutely crazy. Their official statement says a bug was causing issues with back-end server communications, and fixing it meant doing a ton of work to optimize how these services run. They'll be publishing a more detailed explanation to remain transparent about the problem. Nintendo's online expansion pack trailer advertising a new premium tier of the service is officially the most disliked video on Nintendo's official channel, with over 100,000 downvotes. The new tier is more than double the price of Nintendo Online's current service and offers classic titles from the N64 and Sega Genesis. The rub is Nintendo Online already offered classic titles from NES and SNES, plus there are emulation issues with some of the expansion's titles. Nintendo haven't announced any changes to the expansion pack's pricing or improvements to emulation. One bright spot in the story is that GoldenEye 007 might be coming to Switch at some point. The game was just unbanned in Germany after 25 years. Previously, it was illegal to market or sell the game to children in the country. And that's a big deal for Nintendo since their target audience is, well, mostly kids. Nothing has been officially announced regarding GoldenEye coming to the Switch, but it seems like a matter of time considering that the game is one of N64's most successful titles ever. The PlayStation 1 demake of Bloodborne is releasing for free on January 31st next year. The game is a community-made project that recreates several of Bloodborne's biggest moments and key areas, but in the retro aesthetic of Sony's original console. Bloodborne fans and retro gaming enthusiasts have closely followed the project since it was revealed over 4 years ago. Fortnite's China version is going offline this month. As of today, account registration is disabled and servers will be taken offline soon. And while this might sound crazy at first glance, it's not nearly as wild as you might imagine. The Chinese version of Fortnite is a very different game. Matches are shorter and multiple players can win a match. V-Bucks are not bought with real money, instead you earn them through gameplay. The game apparently never took off in China thanks to stiff competition from PUBG and other titles. It's also pretty likely that anyone playing Fortnite in China is playing the version the rest of the world has access to via a VPN. Before we get to our final story today, I just wanted to say thanks for tuning in. We'll have continuing coverage of all the Battlefield related news leading up to 2042's launch, so get subscribed and stay tuned in for more info. Also, don't forget to check the description for that Logitech headset deal while it's still available. Retro FPS Dusk just got a big update on PC that adds several quality of life improvements developed for the game's Switch port. The new additions include a weapon select wheel, a new level select screen that actually makes sense, better control bindings and DualShock 4 support, a classic heads-up display mode, and a handful of accessibility features like auto hop and climb. Dusk is one of the original modern boomer shooters that kickstarted a wave of retro-inspired FPS games like Proteus and Sulaco. It's pretty well regarded, and this update is just icing on the cake. And that wraps it up for today in gaming. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.